Jimmy Lai is speaking out. The Next digital founder and pro-democracy advocate released on bail in Hong Kong days after being taken into custody on suspicion of colluding with foreign forces. The arrest falling under Hong Kong's controversial new national security law. Joining me right now in a first on Fox Business is Next digital founder Jimmy Lai, live right now. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us. First off, are you okay? Can you tell us what happened to you?
Well, I was taken by the police, handcuffed day before yesterday, and retained me for 40 hours. The charge is under the national security law, collusion with foreign powers and all that, because the interviews that I had and all that. So that's it. I don't know what happened. I was very surprised that they let me have a bail out. I thought that I won't have the bail until the trial. That is something that is quite lenient of them to let me out. And but I was not afraid of being sent to China, because when the police came to my house, like almost like 20 of them inside, I don't know how many outside. None of them speak Mandarin. They're all Hong Kong police. So I was at least reassured that they won't take me to China. The Hong Kong police is still at least in control of the National Security Department, and that was it. I don't know what's going to happen later. I don't know what the exact charge will be, but whatever comes, it will be okay. I'm ready for it.
So just to be clear, they did not take you across the border to China because this new national security law allows them to do such that they can. It's so open-ended and broad-based. They could take you across the border and torture you. Did they do that to you, Jimmy?
No, they didn't. They just they took me to the station and put me in the temporary holding place for overnight, and they treat me quite politely, because I was a criminal, so they can't treat me like a gentleman. They had to treat me like a criminal. For the treatment of a criminal, they have been very polite and very civil. So I was not mistreated. No.
So do you fear that this could be the case in the future, Jimmy? I mean, tell me what they told you and what your plans are after this. What is this, the third or fourth arrest, Jimmy, at this point?
Well, I think that this charge will last a long time. I think the most important intention for them is to retain me in Hong Kong, not allow me to travel, because I have a case coming up on the 22nd and 23rd. So that case is a charge that I don't think that I don't think that I will lose. So they're afraid that if I win that case, they will have to let me out. I was actually quite surprised that they arrest me so quick, because I thought they realized that the national security law they implemented in Hong Kong was a blunder, given the strong reaction from the international community, and also the unraveling of a lot of business people sentiment in Hong Kong, according to a recent poll, that 30% of business leaders are planning or already moving the business away from Hong Kong, and 40% of them said that they are thinking of emigration. So they knew that that the whole international financial center that they still treasure is unraveling, because 65% of the direct investment in Hong Kong, in China, has to be executed in Hong Kong, because the rule of law here, that they get protection. So, but maybe they think that, they need to have the law, the national security law, inactive but not dormant. So they have to enact to make sure people realize that the law will be enacted. But I think after that, they would let the law, low profile, make sure that they appease the business people, the international community, so nothing changes. Hong Kong goes on as before. And I think this is the intention. That, you know, the reason they arrest me is to make sure that everyone understands the intimidation is alive and is there. So, you know, they would enact it any time they need to. I think this is the reason they arrest me.
Yeah, but that's the point. The law is still in place, and they can do whatever they want at any time. At another time, we have Hong Kongers gathering at shopping malls overnight to demand press freedom. The people are still on the streets. Tell me what you want to see from the international community. This has become China versus the free world. You're seeing what they've done in terms of invading India, trying to target the Senkaku Islands in Japan, militarizing the South China Sea, overreaching in Hong Kong. Have you seen the response from the international community? We're going to be speaking with President Trump in a couple of minutes. He's coming on live in about an hour on this program. What do you want President Trump to understand about the situation you find yourself in, Jimmy?
Well, I think the international community has done exactly. They're waking up to China that they think eventually will be more like them now is very different from what they expect. I think the whole world, the free world, has waking up to it. So, you know, that once they're waking up to it, they know how to deal with it. You know, because we need China as a partner in the world, because this is beneficial to the world, both to the world and to China. The only thing we need is to have China assimilate into the values of the world, and they have to realize that. I think the international community has to make sure China will have to understand that when they deal with the outside world, they have to deal with the civilized West values. It's not the dictatorial values, because China is becoming so big and even eventually will be the biggest economy in the world. We have to make sure that they understand that to deal with the world can only keep peace if China becomes a peaceful partner. And I think that is the world have to let China know.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're not following the international rules of the road, Jimmy. They are disappearing people. They are stealing intellectual property. They are breaking promises in terms of militarizing the South China Sea and invading other countries. So what is it going to take for China to start playing by the rules of the international fairness of the road?
I think they realize that they are now facing a world very different from what the 40 years the world have allowed them to prosper and do big business. That's why recently you can see that the rhetoric has become more reconciliation. You know, rhetoric. What they call it? They dial back on the rhetorics. You know, they become more, you know, friendly and try to reconcile with the world. And I think this is a good sign. I hope that, you know, they just go on to realize that, you know, China is still a poor country. As Li Keqiang says, that 600 million people still earning 1,000 renminbi, which equal to 130. So they can't just be, you know, have the ambition to dominate the world. They have to follow the rule of the world, and they will become prosperous and big and be welcomed by the world. And that's good for China, that's good for China, and that's good for the world. I think they have to realize that. I think, you know, Mr. Trump can talk to them and have them realize that.
Yeah, tell us what's happening on the ground in Hong Kong, Jimmy, the way you see it. In the last couple of weeks before you were detained, what does the sentiment feel like on the ground in Hong Kong right now? Tell the rest of the world what you're seeing.
Well, I think the national security law has definitely have a very effective intimidation on the people. It's all quiet. People, are thinking of immigrations. I talk to people, people, thinking of immigrations, and people actually react very strongly to my arrest. The emotion of the city was overwhelming, and I people were very, very angry. So that people, they're not accepting this, but they are staying low profile because they cannot do anything, because the national security law is so draconian. Anytime they can take you to China, for 10 years or for life.
Right.
That's something very dreadful. And a lot of people are very afraid.
Right.
Even those executives who were arrested with me, some of them came back, really shaken. They were very afraid. So people are really scared
Jimmy,
now.
Do you think that China will change? Do you think that China will understand that the rest of the world, the free world, will not tolerate this behavior?
Well, I hope they can, because a lot is at stake, especially in China. Okay, but
yeah.
it's difficult for them to change. Especially when Xi Jinping is the president. Xi Jinping is totally the Mao-Zedong kind of hardcore communist. He wants to bring China back to the Mao time. All the control that he's increasing is exactly the way that Mao was controlling the country. So it's not hopeful that they can change. But they need to change, and they know that now.
But
so how they come out with it, we don't know. I'm sure they know
the Chinese government has elevated the Chinese government has elevated Xi Jinping to the same status that Mao had, which is dictator for life. Is that when everything changed, Jimmy?
Well, unless they change Xi Jinping, which is not impossible, because Xi Jinping, since his ascension, the whole country is facing problems they never had to face in the 40 years of the economic opening. China has become the second biggest economy of the world just because America has been very friendly with them. The world has been very friendly with them. Now, all of a sudden, everybody turned their face against China, and they should realize that that is not a good sign. It's going to make China's dealing with the world very difficult. And if for instance, the U.S. sanctioned the chips to China, it has so much damaged the economy already. So let alone all the other sanctions and all that, I'm sure they want to find a way to step down, and maybe the world can help them to do so with some agreement. But it's also at the same time, can the world trust CCP? When they violate so many of the promises. It's something, the world has to crack this nut. The world has to solve this problem with China. Because without solving the problem with China, we won't have the peace. The world won't have the peace. Because China, we can't have a hot war with China, even a cold war with China. We cannot decouple commercially with China because they are very efficient and big manufacturers and a big market. So, we have to find a way. The world has to find a way to reconcile with China and China with the world.
Jimmy, you make so many important points. We are so happy to see that you are safe And we will continue to talk with you as much as we can. We need the rest of the world to make sure to see you safe, Jimmy Lai. So we're going to keep turning a camera on you to make sure that we understand what's going on and how China is behaving. Jimmy Lai, thank you for your courage and your leadership. Thanks for being here this morning.
We'll
be watching.
Thank you so much.
That I assure you. All right, Jim. Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy Lai joining us live from Hong Kong. What a compelling interview and commentary he just made.